February 19, 1945, 9 a.m., the volcanic ash beaches of Iwo Jima. Lieutenant Robert Dunlap of the 27th Marines pressed himself against the black sand as Japanese machine gun fire tore through the air above him. About 30 yards ahead, a concrete pillbox exploded with bright flashes of gunfire. His rifle had jammed, clogged with the cursed volcanic grit that covered everything. 3 Marines beside him were already dead when a Japanese soldier suddenly burst from a hidden spider hole, less than 10 feet away, bayonet fixed, screaming. Dunlap had only 1 second to draw the heavy Colt M1911 45 pistol from his hip holster. The gun barked once. The Japanese soldier's charge ended instantly, his body crumpling backward as if an invisible sledgehammer had struck him, in the hellish closeness of Pacific Island warfare. That single shot represented something the Imperial Japanese Army had completely failed to understand. American firepower wasn't just about numbers, it was about stopping power. The question that haunted American combat reports from Guadalcanal to Okinawa was both tactical and psychological. Why did Japanese forces keep underestimating the power of American small guns, especially the Colt 45 pistol, only to have that mistake cost them badly in the brutal close-up fighting that defined the Pacific War? The answer tells not just a story about guns, but a clash between 2 very different military ways of thinking about courage, technology, and what really wins a fight. Japanese military rules in 1941 carried the pride of an empire that had taken over Manchuria, humiliated China, and shocked the world at Pearl Harbor. Their infantry training focused on the spiritual strength of the Japanese soldier. They believed in perfect bayonet charges and were sure that American troops were soft, undisciplined, and would break under determined attacks. This wasn't just propaganda. It was a real belief, written into training manuals and battle rules. Japanese soldiers trained with the Nambu Type 14 pistol, an 8mm semi-automatic gun that American intelligence officers later said was enough to scare Chinese peasants, inadequate for stopping a determined enemy. Firing a fairly weak 8-Audi 22mm Nambu cartridge, generating about 162 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, the Nambu pistol showed Japanese priorities. It was lightweight, easy to make, and meant as a mostly ceremonial weapon for officers who were supposed to lead with swords and spirit, not guns. When Japanese troops captured American positions in the Philippines in 1942 and saw the heavy Colt M1911 pistols, intelligence reports said their reactions ranged from laughter to dismissive contempt. The gun looked absurdly large, overbuilt, and seemed to show that Americans depended on material strength more than soldier spirit. They could not have been more wrong. The Colt 45 M1911 was not made for target practice or ceremonies. It was made to stop charging enemies for sure, and its design history showed American practical thinking at its most determined. The pistol came from bitter experience in the Philippine-American War, taught a hard lesson. American soldiers with .38 caliber revolvers found that determined fighters, often driven by drugs or religious fervor, could take many bullets and keep attacking. The U.S. Army didn't blame the soldiers or change their training. Instead, they built a bigger gun. John Moses Browning's M1911 fired the 45 ACP cartridge, producing about 400 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, more than double the Japanese Nambu. But the numbers only tell part of the story. The 45 ACP's big, relatively slow-moving bullet caused massive shock to the body. Medical reports from Pacific battles showed that hits to the chest with the 45 made wounds about 2.5 inches wide, and almost always stopped the attacker immediately. The Japanese had made a pistol for officers the Japanese made a pistol for officers to carry. Americans made a pistol to instantly stop close combat. By 1944, Colt, Remington Rand, Ithaca, and other makers had produced over 2.7 million M1911 pistols. The gun weighed 3.9 pounds loaded, held 7 bullets in the magazine plus 1 in the chamber, and was standard issue for officers, NCOs, vehicle crews, and special infantry. In the tight jungles of Guadalcanal, the cave systems of Peleliu, and the bunker networks of Iwo Jima, that pistol would earn its legend in the most personal and brutal fighting of the war. Guadalcanal taught the lesson first. Marine Corps reports after battles from Henderson Field described Japanese night attacks. These soldiers had studied American defenses and thought they could use the dark and close combat against them. On the night of October 25, 1942, Japanese forces launched coordinated attacks on Marine lines. What happened next destroyed Japanese ideas about American courage. Corporal Mitchell Page, leading a machine gun section, found himself in hand-to-hand fighting after his position was overrun. His pistol killed 3 men at less than 15 feet. His report was simple. Each man I shot with the .45 went down immediately and did not get up. No second shots were needed. Similar stories appeared in combat reports from Tarawa, Saipan, and the Philippines. Japanese soldiers who survived and became prisoners said they were shocked at how quickly American pistols stopped enemies. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, leading Japanese forces on Iwo Jima, had studied American guns carefully. His orders warned soldiers not to underestimate American firepower and suggested staying in defensive positions instead of charging with banzai attacks. He understood what earlier leaders did not. American weapons were made to be effective, not ceremonial, and the Empire's spiritual pride meant nothing against the shock and severe damage caused by bullets. But old beliefs were hard to change. Even in 1945, Japanese training manuals still focused on close fighting with bayonets and swords, weapons that needed the attacker to survive long enough to reach the enemy. Against Marines and soldiers with M1911 pistols in tight bunkers and caves, surviving to reach the enemy was impossible. Combat studies from Okinawa showed that Americans with pistols caused more enemy deaths in close fights than Japanese soldiers with rifles and bayonets. By the end of the war, the numbers clearly showed Japanese tactics were failing. Medical checks of wounded soldiers showed that those shot with Nambu pistols survived more than 60% of the time if treated within 2 hours. Soldiers shot in the center with the M1911 survived less than 15% under the same conditions. The difference was not skill or courage. It was physics. American tests showed that the .45 ACP cartridge could go through 4 inches of pine wood or 12 inches of packed dirt, enough to hit targets behind normal field defenses. The heavy bullet still had enough energy after going through to cause deadly wounds. Japanese pistol bullets, on the other hand, often couldn't even go through light cover. In the harsh island fighting, where every cave and bunker could be a killing spot, this difference was life or death. The U.S. military made over 3 billion rounds of .45 ACP ammo during the war. Pistols that seemed too much in peacetime were perfect for fights where enemies were often just a few feet away. Japanese forces were too slow to adapt, held back by strict rules and industrial limits that stopped them from making similar guns. Even when battlefield reports showed the need, Pacific War close combat gave a clear answer about the clash between Japanese military thinking and American practical engineering. Japanese soldiers, taught to value courage and spirit over firepower, learned that bravery could not beat the shock of a bullet. Officers who carried pistols as symbols of rank were outgunned by American NCOs with guns made to kill instantly. The Colt 1911 stayed in U.S. service until 1985, 74 years, showing how effective it really was. Modern studies of Pacific War battles confirm what reports from the jungles and caves already showed. The .45 ACP's stopping power saved countless American lives by ending attacks before enemies got close. The Japanese military's fatal mistake was not a lack of knowledge. It was a difference in philosophy. They made weapons that showed their values of discipline, austerity, and spiritual pride. Americans made weapons that focused on being deadly and overwhelming. In the volcanic caves of Iwo Jima and the jungles of Guadalcanal, That difference showed in survival rates and casualty numbers that no amount of bravery could beat. The main reason Japanese soldiers feared American pistols was simple. The Colt 45 was made to stop a person with one shot, and it always did exactly what it was made to.